This is my backup survival gun. Do you need one? Maybe not. Would it be nice to have in a survival situation? I think so, and this Beretta 20X Bobcat, chambered in .22 long rifle, has been an excellent pistol, and I think is perfect for that job. So in this video, we're gonna go over the pistol itself. We're gonna talk about some of the specifications, why I think it works well in that role. I'm gonna show you a little setup I put together where it easily fits into a pouch that you can store in a bug out bag or something of that nature. And we'll talk about why I favor this particular model over their 32 ACP model, just to give you some things to consider. And I honestly just wanna talk to you about why I think having something like this makes sense from a survival standpoint. Not necessarily purely for self-defense, but having access to a tool that has a very small footprint and a very low weight penalty that still allows you to possibly help you survive a situation. So let's jump into all of that as soon as we get a word in from today's video sponsor. I want to take a second to thank SDI, the Sonoran Desert Institute, for supporting the channel. Now, I know what you're thinking, but if you want to learn gunsmithing or how to work with drones and become a better asset to your community without having to relocate or travel to a facility, SDI can provide you with that education. And it's an accredited college, so at the end, you could come out with a degree. And whatever you do with that education thereafter is up to you. And of course, they're updating their programs and supplying additional equipment and tools, so the education you get will be valuable. So check out sdi.edu/magic to get additional information. There will be links in the description as well as in the pinned comment, and I thank SDI for their support. All right, big thanks to SDI for supporting the channel. Now here we have the backup survival gun pouch I put together. It's an old Condor first aid pouch. It's MOLLE compatible, so you can integrate it into a kit or a bug out bag or something like that. But I like it because it has elastic loops on the inside meant for organizing medical supplies. But in this case, it just keeps everything nice and secure. And before we open it up, I just want to mention that it weighs just under 3.5 pounds with everything inside. So keep that in mind as we move forward. Go ahead and open her up. You can see the elastic loops keeping everything in nice and tight. And then we have the main event, which is the Beretta 20X Bobcat, chambered in .22 long rifle. Now, full disclosure, Beretta did send this gun to the channel in order to explore this concept, and I greatly appreciate their support in doing so. We'll go ahead and unload it just to make sure it's safe before we start going through everything. Get the magazine out. And then instead of having to rack the slide, the 20X Bobcat, which is something I really like about it, has the effortless loading system, which is this button right here. So we just go ahead and press that button, pops the barrel up. You can see it's unloaded. And this is also how you can load the first round if you want, in order to make it a lot easier for people with weaker hands or even just quieter or whatever it might be. So I like that system quite a bit, but now we know we are unloaded. So go ahead and talk about the magazine really quick. So this is a polymer magazine, which I have some issues with that just in the sense of perceived fragility, although I haven't had any problems with it per se. The one thing that I have had happen is when reloading the pistol, if you were to slam it home like so, like you would do with like a duty pistol, a couple times I've actually pushed the base pad off by doing that. So just keep that in mind. It's not necessarily made for doing that, but you do want this base pad because it allows you to get a full grip and purchase on the pistol, which makes this really small gun very shootable. So I like that a lot, and I like that design for that purpose because I can take this out on the range and actually enjoy shooting it. But it's just something to keep in mind that this whole magazine is polymer, including the base plate, which means that, you know, there is some fragility to be expected there, but I haven't had any issues with the functionality of the magazine. We have 8 rounds, single stack, .22 long rifle, as you can see right there. The one thing I will say is that if you want to ensure utter reliability, downloading to 7 rounds does seem to help a little bit in the sense of not having that additional pressure of the 8th round pushing up. That's for the full magazine and one in the chamber. Downloading to 7 eliminates this issue. So if you just download it to 7, that seems to go away. So just keep that in mind in case this is something you're interested in. But it hasn't always been a problem, just here and there, and it's something that I thought was worth noting. So we now understand how the magazine works, maybe some of the perceived issues there that haven't really been a real problem. But 8 rounds of .22 long rifle, not necessarily anything to scoff at in a package this small. So a couple of things about this particular pistol. It's got a 2.8-inch barrel. This barrel is threaded, right? And so we have the thread protector here on the end, which I would keep on if you don't have the suppressor on in order to make sure those threads don't get damaged. Of course, there's a little O-ring there to ensure that you have a proper seal and that the thread protector or the suppressor you're using doesn't just easily thread itself off. We have suppressor height sights, which work really well, and that white dot on the front side is nice and high contrast. I would have liked to see maybe night sights on this because it's not necessarily set up for an optic or anything like that. I'm sure there are plates you can get that would fit in this dovetail mount right here, but in general, it'd be nice if that was a night sight just to kind of give you a little bit more capability with this pistol without having to add anything else. It is a double action, single action with a manual safety, and the magazine release, which is one of the updates from the 20X Bobcat versus like the old 21A Bobcat, I believe, is that the magazine release is in more of like the typical position, and it's actually very easy to actuate. So, usually you're just gonna pop it with your thumb and it's gonna slide right out onto the ground because that's how I do things here. Now, double action, single action with a manual safety means that when the safety is up, we can't cock the hammer, we can't pull the trigger or anything like that. So safety's down, we now have double action, which one full trigger pull releases it, right? And this is a rimfire pistol, so you don't want to dry fire it very much at all, but I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes. And of course, you can cock the hammer back and then be in single action mode. You could turn the safety back on and it's not going to go off, and then turn the safety off, and of course now you're just in single action. So you have that different set of capabilities in regards to how you want to carry this and how safe you want to be with it, including being on double action with the safety on. So it's a very safe handgun design, and it allows you those different versatilities in the sense of safety in case maybe you're wearing gloves and you need the single action to be activated so there's more space in the trigger guard, so you can put the safety on and now you can fit your gloved finger in there without having to worry about everything going off prematurely because there is a manual safety. So I do like that it gives you all those different options, and I think that's really nice. So you can rack the slide, by the way. It's just a little difficult. So that effortless loading system really does make a huge difference. Now, something else I want to mention about this particular pistol is that here you can see where things get dirty and fouled up really quickly thanks to that gross 22 long rifle ammunition. And so keeping this clean really makes a huge difference when it comes to reliability. So this is something that you'd want to pay attention to and ensure you maintain, and you wouldn't be able to get through all the ammunition that I have in this pouch without running into some problems in between maintenance cycles, at least in my experience. So it is 22 long rifle, it's dirty. We have to be realistic about, what we expect in the sense of reliability. So let's go ahead and move on to some other components of the pouch. And I think the most important one is going to be the Disavowed Group MORTEM suppressor that you see right here. Also, the MORTEM was supplied to the channel by Disavowed Group for testing, just so you're aware. So this is a single piece 3D printed titanium suppressor. It's all one piece. It doesn't come apart or anything like that. In order to clean it, you would just soak it in some suppressor or like some sort of a cleaner solution in order to get everything cleaned out using an ultrasonic or something like that as well if you'd want. But what's really nice about it is that it's super lightweight. I mean, this thing weighs less than 4 ounces. It just weighs nothing. It's a direct thread. It's got a 1/2 by 28 inch thread pattern on it. And then it has this like reduced back pressure flow through style technology built in, which really does make a difference in the sense of the signature and the rapport of the sound and everything else. So I guess it's more of a report because, rapport doesn't really make sense in that sentence, but here we are. So this is a very good suppressor, very lightweight. It's really good on this particular pistol. And we'll go ahead and put these together here, but only in the way that we're allowed to on this lovely platform. All right, so here we have the Disavowed Group MORTEM attached to the Beretta 20X Bobcat, and this package is just insanely fun, quiet, pleasant to shoot, and reliable. And in fact, the slight additional back pressure provided by the suppressor really does help with the reliability of this pistol. I mean, this thing is really solid once we added the suppressor, and it all works so well together. I just don't really have anything negative to say about this particular package. And another thing that's really cool is that even fully loaded with an 8-round magazine, this particular setup weighs around 20 ounces, which is, the same as like, your bottle of soda you buy at the gas station. So for 20 ounces, you have a really fun, capable package that can be an excellent backup survival gun system, especially if you need to reduce that signature and you don't want to either alert anybody of your position or at the bare minimum, maybe not scare away any other game you might be trying to harvest. So this is what I really like in the sense of like this gun plus this suppressor equals like one of the best little pistols I've ever owned. And honestly, it's becoming one of my favorite guns in general for around the property when it comes to like gopher control and just having something on me in case I run into anything out there. I just really like it. I don't really understand why, but the infatuation with it is legitimate and I think it's amazing. So I want to go ahead and set this down really quick. And of course, we can just make sure once again that we're safe. And even with the suppressor on, you can still use that effortless loading system. So pretty awesome and we're good to go there, okay? Now, we'll go ahead, keep going through the pouch. Down here, there's another set of loops that's hard to see, and we have spare magazine, another 8 rounds. Now this ammo is actually Federal. Here, give me 1 second. Federal 22 long rifle, and this is the suppressor ammo. So it's subsonic, nice and quiet, and it's been running reliably. I also have ran a lot of the CCI suppressor, which is actually a hollow point that's not plated, so it's just a lead hollow point. It also runs very good. So either way, whatever you're using, I like the suppressor ones because that little bit of sound reduction is worth it, and the less back pressure seems to be a good balance in the system. So we'll go ahead and show you that I have 4 more boxes of it in here in a Ziploc bag in order to, protect them from moisture and whatnot. There's 200 more rounds of 22 long rifle in here that's made for, suppressor use. And that's all that's in the pouch. So here is what's in the pouch. We have, the gun, the spare magazine, the magazines are loaded, and then another 200 rounds. So we have a really excellent system and a lot of ammunition in a really small package. The gun by itself with a loaded mag at 20 ounces is already impressive, but to get all this stuff in that pouch that's easily integrated into any kit at under 3.5 pounds is pretty wild, because you could not even get close to that with something like 9mm or even, 357 SIG or any of those other rounds you might be considering. Like, this is really good in that regard. So now, one of the reasons I wanted to try out the 20X Bobcat is because beforehand I had the 30X Tomcat. It was chambered in 32 ACP, and I thought it'd be a better gun in the sense of being a centerfire cartridge, so maybe more reliable, a little better at self-defense than a 22 long rifle. But I ran into some issues with that pistol that I haven't had with the Bobcat. In fact, in my experience, the Bobcat has been an all-around much better gun in the sense of reliability and just fun and everything else related to logistics because of 22 long rifle. So I wanted to share some of those issues with you just so you can see that there is that need for transparency even when I work with these companies, because I want you to be well informed, and I also want you to understand that from a preparedness standpoint, even though we already knew this just because of the idea of 22 long rifle being so ubiquitous, this is a better option than the 30X Tomcat in my opinion. Right now we're in double action mode, right? You can see here the manual safety is right here. It's not ambidextrous, it's only on this side. So you can turn it off, turn it on, right? So it's on right now, and as you can see, it still lets the hammer drop. And the same can be said for when it's in single action, right? So we're gonna go ahead and pull that back. Single action, turn on the safety. It just drops. All right, so this is the initial test drive from the factory of the replacement Beretta 30X Tomcat. So I'm gonna go ahead and run some jacketed hollow points through it, 32 ACP from PPU, just to see what happens and basically find out if this thing can run hollow points while also testing the new pistol to see if it's reliable. So go ahead and put one in the chamber, and then I guess we'll just see how it works. Okay, so what happened there, which looks like a malfunction and technically is, the slide caught my glove. So let's go ahead and try that again without my glove in the mix this time. All right, looks like we're empty. Nothing in the chamber there. So it ran those hollow points fine except for that first one, but like I said, my glove interacted with the slide, so that was kind of on me. But more testing to come. So far, everything works properly. So if you can see, double action trigger, right? Good to go. We pull into single action. Good to go. Now, if we put on the safety, I cannot pull the trigger back. Put it in single action and put on the safety. Hammer doesn't drop. Turn off the safety. Hammer stays put. So it does seem that the manual safety mechanism on this particular pistol is working properly now. So that's a good thing, obviously. And I can appreciate that Beretta stood behind their product by sending a new one out once they received the old one and realized it just wasn't worth fixing. So yeah, so that was definitely not my glove. It could be that this PPU, jacketed hollow point ammunition, just isn't working right in this pistol. So the 30X Tomcat is a cool gun, however it did have those problems I just showed you, and I would recommend the 20X Bobcat over it, not just because it's better logistically, being chambered in 22 long rifle, but because it's been very reliable, very fun, and I enjoy shooting it. Now, there have been some hiccups, but those hiccups are easily remedied. Either the gun needs to be clean because rimfire is just inherently dirty, and once you clean it up, it gets back up and running no problem, or you just have to download one round in the magazine just to ensure additional cycling reliability because of removing some of that additional pressure, which both of those things aren't really a big deal, but they are things to be aware of. And other than that, this gun has been awesome. So when it comes to the survival gun application, the 22 long rifle allows you to access things like hunting small game, having some level of self-defense, but also very, very quiet shooting when using a suppressor. That's why I think this gun is so well suited for that. And I think if you were to take the pouch with the gun and the additional ammunition and the spare magazine and everything else, and then throw that in a bug out bag or potentially a survival crate. Maybe you have something you put in your truck when you're evacuating for a hurricane or whatever it might be, or maybe even on something like a boat, right? If you were to take this pouch and then maybe, I don't know, put it in a bag or make it somewhat waterproof, and then have this on a boat or something along those lines where you're out on a vessel that may actually end up getting you stranded to some degree. I think having this package is actually a good thing. Like, this is a backup plan that makes sense more so than a lot of other backup plans, right? So I think this definitely has a place in preparedness. And from my experience, like, I would trust this gun in that scenario. So let's just wrap this all up with some final thoughts, but I'd love to hear what you would put this particular pouch with everything inside of it in the sense of like an emergency kit, just because I'm always curious to hear what everybody else's ideas are. So do you need a backup survival gun like this one? Maybe not, but if you find yourself in the wilderness quite often and you're worried about a survival situation where you might need to put some food on the table or potentially defend yourself, well, this gun can do a lot of that without paying many penalties in the process. And it's relatively reliable for being a semi-automatic rimfire pistol in this size of package. And the fact that I can take the suppressor off and throw it in my pocket and carry it concealed if needed, and the fact that it has the ability to be as quiet as it is if I need to eliminate my footprint and ensure that even if I am just trying to get some food, not everybody around me needs to know. There's a lot of reasons why I think this particular setup is actually viable for that survival scenario. This is not my go-to choice for concealed carry or self-defense or anything along those lines, because I just don't trust rimfire cartridges for that duty. However, in a pinch, if required, this still provides you with that capability, whereas having no handgun at all does not, while also being very good at acquiring small game, whereas larger pistol cartridges are generally not as good for that. So I like it for that purpose. The Beretta 20X Bobcat has been a very good pistol for me, and in fact, very impressive considering how many issues I've had with other semi-automatic rimfire pistols in the past. So here's the thing. I think that if you have all your boxes crossed off and you have all the guns you need for your practical purposes, right? So you have your capability of hunting with your utility rifle / shotgun, whether or not that's like a bolt action hunting rifle or your 12 gauge you use for upland game. And then you have your self-defense carbine and pistol, and you have your concealed carry, and you have the things that you need and know you may use on a more regular basis. And you want to have something for those situations where you end up backpacking out in the wilderness or whatever it may be. Then I think adding something like this to that collection becomes a good idea. Not to mention, it's very fun, it's easy to shoot on the range, and it's great for teaching new shooters because it's not intimidating at all. And even though it's very small, because of the frame and the way it's set up and the way it's designed, it's still comfortable to shoot, and it's actually pleasant to shoot, which is a big deal when trying to teach new shooters. So let me know your thoughts on the backup survival gun concept as a whole down in the comments below, as well as your thoughts on the Beretta 20X Bobcat, because I think this is a really good pistol, and I think it's better than the 30X Tomcat. And of course, if you need anything else from me, you can go to magicprepper.com. There's lots of ways to support the channel there, which I always greatly appreciate. Not to mention, you can check out the description as well as the pinned comment if you want to find other ways to support as well. Besides that, it's going to be it for Magic Prepper.